Zuvuya is a force that propels synchronicity and consequently the supply from which magic bursts forth. It is a reflex of cosmic memory, the circuit through which everything comes back to itself. Through synchronicity, symbols, and metaphors, we are rearranging and forming our inner landscape to be able to grow in the fullness of being our own selves. Welcome to our podcast. In this sacred space, we share valuable knowledge, experiences, and art for the benefit of all. Coming up.
Yeah, the past 12 years, I've been digging into Bram's life and the life of his brothers, my great-grandfather. In the process, I found a lot of letters back and forth between the family members, and one of them was Bram's eldest brother, who actually helped Bram with all the medical sides of the story. And, I'll try to keep this brief because I could talk for hours, unfortunately, but the science part of Dracula, the medical part, was very cutting edge science at the time. Bram's eldest brother was actually somebody who helped Bram not only in the physical side with the operation on Renfield in chapter 21, but also the side with the people that had mental challenges. That's how he helped figure out Renfield. But there was one other really interesting section that Chris and I delve into a lot, and that's this scientific mind that was also a criminal mind, because the science that was being looked at, called phrenology, Cesar Lombroso is mentioned in the novel of, this is the type of criminal mind that Dracula had. He was a scientist that was doing experiments on people. Now, that didn't come out in the full novel, and we fleshed that out. We also find in a different version of the novel in Iceland and Sweden that there was half ape, half human creatures. So this was something that Dr. Thornley Stoker was actually looking into in Ireland, the treatment of animals in scientific experiments in Ireland to make sure they're treated properly. So it's a big issue that I know Bram was looking into. We're picking up that little thread of the scientific experimentation, the criminal mind of Dracula, and utilizing that.
Hello, Synchronauts, and welcome to our episode 4 of Zuvuya Sessions. My name is Aida, and I'm very happy to have you here. This is a very special episode because, well, I love vampires. I don't know if you like vampires, but I love vampires, and I have the two most amazing guests here today with me, who are Dacre Stoker and Chris McAuley. And we're going to be talking in this episode about the king of the undead, none other than Dracula. They are working together in a project that is bringing back Dracula to the mainstream, and you can be a part of this adventure. So let me tell you about my two very special guests for today. Dacre Stoker is a great-grandnephew of Bram Stoker and the international best-selling co-author of Dracula the Un-Dead from 2009, the Stoker family endorsed sequel to Dracula. Dacre is also the co-editor with Elizabeth Miller of The Lost Journal of Bram Stoker, The Dublin Years, published in 2012. Released in October of 2018, Dracul, a prequel to Dracula, co-authored with J.D. Barker, was the UK's #1 best-selling hardcover novel in horror and supernatural in 2018, and a top 5 finalist by the Horror Writers Association for the Bram Stoker Award for Superior Achievement in a Novel. Film rights for Dracul have been optioned by Paramount Studios. And Dacre's recent work includes Dracula's Bedlam in 2021 with Chris McAuley and John Peel, and The Virgin's Embrace, also published in 2021 with Chris McAuley, a graphic novel adaptation of Bram Stoker's short story The Squaw from 1893. Additionally, short stories with Levered Butts, The Last Days, appeared in Weird Tales magazine, January 2021. The Tired Captain featured in FX Sherlock Holmes anthology, and Enter the Dragon in Classic Monsters Unleashed anthology, January 2022, and upcoming The Lost Warrior in Dracula Unfanged anthology, coming out in the summer of 2022. Dacre has also collaborated with Scottish writer Mike Sheppard on Slane's Castle's Secret History, from Wild Wolf 2022, a novel of historical fiction written in narrative non-fiction style. Dacre has consulted and appeared in recent film documentaries about vampires in literature and popular culture, The Real Vampire Files from 2010 History Channel, The Tillinghast Nightmare from 2014 Historical Hunts, Secrets of the Dead 2015 PBS, Mysteries at the Museum 2017 Travel Channel, Legend Hunter from 2019 Travel Channel, and he currently hosts tours to Dublin, Ireland, Whitby, England, and Cruden Bay, Scotland, to visit places where Bram Stoker lived, was educated, worked, researched, and wrote Dracula. He also leads groups to Transylvania to explore both the life and times of the historic Vlad Dracula III, and also the locations where Bram Stoker set his famous novel. And Chris McAuley is a writer who specializes in the horror, science fiction, fantasy, and crime genre. Chris has been the lead writer in novels, comics, audio dramas, and games. He's the co-creator of the popular Stalker Verse, along with Bram Stoker's great-grandnephew, Dacre Stoker. He has also created a science fiction and fantasy franchise with Babylon 5's Claudia Christian. Chris has worked with some of the top names in Star Wars, Star Trek, and Doctor Who. So without further ado, let me welcome my two very special guests, Dacre Stoker and Chris McAuley, speaking today about the return of Dracula in this amazing comic where you can be part of this adventure. Welcome, Synchronauts. Hello, Synchronauts, and welcome to this fourth episode of Zuvuya Sessions. And let me tell you that today we have two very special guests joining us today. Let's give the warmest of welcomes to Dacre Stoker and Chris McAuley. Welcome, gentlemen. They are here to share with us a very special project that all of you Dracula and vampire lovers will very much appreciate. I know that I do because I love vampires. And Dracula, of course, who doesn't know about Count Dracula? So let's begin talking about a bit about the inspiration of why you are working on a project. It's being brought forth right now. So why did you decide to do this project, no? Which is about the king of the undead, Dracula himself. Why bring Dracula back in 2022 and in this comic format? I don't know if you can tell us a little bit about what's going on, where does it come from, and what inspired you to do this in these times?
Well, I'll jump in first, and then Chris, who's really the genius behind this whole project and has more of a comic appreciation understanding than I do. But basically, Ada and your listeners, this is the 125th anniversary of Dracula. Bram published this book back in 1897. And, you know, in a funny way, it's never really been gone. So we're not like we're bringing him back. He's just kind of been resting in his grave a little quietly. Many other people have been inspired by Bram's Count Dracula. And they've modernized him in just hundreds of different ways, 700 movie citations, thousands of comic books, stage, screen, everything. But the essence of Bram Stoker's Dracula, not the one in the Coppola film, but Bram Stoker's
very
novel,
different.
That is very different. And that's what we're doing. And I'm glad you reacted that way. We are bringing my great-granduncle's Dracula, his Count Dracula, back in the original form that Bram was inspired by, and to make his creation and set it upon the world 125 years ago. But I'll leave it up to Chris to explain, you know, the reason we're going from prose novel, epistolary style novel, to a comic book, otherwise known as a graphic novel in some circles. But why are we going that route? I'll let my partner in this one answer that part of the question. So Chris?
Yeah, graphic novels are a very easy way to digest narrative. There's a lot of people that don't read novels anymore. You know, we live in an era where it's you know, everything's kind of instantaneous. You know, going and reading a novel takes a little bit of time. So you know, graphic novels have increased in popularity because of that, but people still want good stories. There's also that lovely synchronicity between the writer and the artist. So you know, you get this beautiful artwork, which is very moody, and can portray in a panel, can portray what a writer has to elaborate on maybe in 3 pages. So it's a very different form, but it's something that's easy to digest. And with the artwork that we're bringing into this, there are many different ways to look at each of the panels. You know, the tone, the line work. You know, the panels tell the story themselves almost, as well as the dialogue. Okay. So it's an intricate form of storytelling.
It's really interesting what you say. I'm sorry, just to say, Marshall McLuhan said the medium is the message. So it's really interesting how you're really using all of the characteristics of that medium in particular to bring forth this eternal story.
And just one more quick thing to throw in that not a lot of people know. Bram Stoker himself was quite an accomplished artist. As a young boy, he received awards from the Royal Hibernian Society. And later on, while he was still in university, he was a founding member of the Dublin Painting and Sketching Club. So, and I've seen some of his sketches. He didn't sell any, he was just an amateur, but he just loved that expression. And as Chris said, it's a medium that, you know, many people nowadays look at. Obviously, they didn't have comic books the same way they did back in the day, but I think Bram would really be thrilled that what we're doing is taking his magnum opus Dracula. This is the return. This is a continuation of the story. And we'll talk later about merging it with some of his other stories. But I think he would have been thrilled that we get to bring his incredible story. The family members and Chris, who's a fellow Irishman of Bram's, get to bring this story into an artistic medium.
Yes, it's really nice because it's a very fast-paced world. And now we just want to consume things very fastly. As Chris was saying, we're not really taking the time to read a novel. So this is going to be good for people who like to read, but also people who enjoy the visual part of a comic or any other medium. And so I would also like to ask you, can you tell us a bit more about how this collaboration between you two came to fruition and who is bringing what to the table? Because I understand that there's more talented people on board for this particular project. So can you tell us a bit more about it, please?
Chris, why don't you take the lead on this?
Yeah.
You're the ringmaster to put everything together here.
Yeah, so Shane Chebsby of Scratch Comics, he had come to us and he had said, look, you know, we'd love a story from you guys for a comic book horror anthology that we were doing. So we came up with this tale last year of a band in the 80s who their manager's a bit mysterious, and of course he turns out to be a vampire. And yeah, the band members get quite jealous of the manager and the fact that the lead singer is the manager's favorite, so they try to kill the manager in a variety of ways, but he doesn't stay dead and exacts his revenge. So that was, you know, I think it was a 6 or 8 pager, and that was quite popular. So Shane suggested that we maybe have looking at doing some Dracula comics. Dacre and I had done a graphic novel, The Virgin's Embrace, which was the update of Bram Stoker's short story, The Squaw. Okay. And we also had a mixed media novel that came out that had some graphic novel elements to it, called Dracula's Bedlam, and it worked quite well. So in between the prose, we actually had some graphic novel stories, and one of them was the journey of Renfield going to Castle Dracula. So those worked out quite well. It seemed to be very popular. So yeah, we sat down and we worked out a script for, you know, the official Stalker Verse sequel to Dracula, the continuation of the story. And yeah, we scripted it out. What we've been doing is that we've been bringing together other aspects of Bram Stoker's work to create the Stalker Verse. So we brought in the White Worm character, we've brought in the Egyptian princess from Jill of Seven Stars, and you know, all of those kind of culminated in the script. Shane then found us a fantastic artist called Chris Geary. Chris is well known in UK comic book circles, and we've got a fantastic colorist called Matt Soff, and he really brings beautiful tonality to the intricate line work of Chris's work. We've also got a little backup strip that a Buffy writer helped us with. She's worked on Buffy and Angel TV shows. And we've got David Hitchcock, who's well known for folks who follow British comics in 2000 AD, and his artwork's incredible, very detailed, very grotesque, and suitable for a horror comic. Our cover artist is a chap called Shane Oakley. He specializes in horror, all sorts of horror. Lovecraftian, which there's elements of Lovecraft in our cosmic horror stuff with it, and a few celebrity variant cover artists. So we've got Hellboy artist Ben Steinbeck. He's producing a variant cover as well, and a few others that I'm not allowed to mention yet.
Okay, so it's a surprise we will be finding out very soon about. So you are bringing out the big guns for this project, definitely.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
That is really, really cool. And so tell me, because, well, obviously, Dracula is so embedded in the subconscious of everybody all over the world. And More Castle, a writer, states, and I quote, "Dracula is the vampire novel, the Bible of bloodsuckers, Old Testament, New Testament, and Apocrypha. It is the epitome of undeadness." And I think we all can agree with that, no? So tell me, why do you think that after 125 years, Dracula is still so appealing to so many people and so many different generations all over the world? Because I've never met anybody who has not heard about Dracula.
Well, it's not also just his awareness. I mean, we all agree it is worldwide phenomena because it's crept into popular culture in every possible form of entertainment, product endorsement, and so on. But you have to go back to the real root of the issue. And in the novel, Bram Stoker didn't spend a lot of time describing exactly the motives of Dracula, his actual beginnings, his ending.
Yeah.
They're all very mysterious. They're unresolved. And so therefore that in the novel, that was really powerful because Dracula, as we understood him when we're reading the novel, and it's really never been properly done in a film either, exists in the minds of the characters, the band of heroes who were affected by him and trying to destroy him. So what that leaves is this unresolved character with a mysterious past, with a mysterious future, because as Chris and I have explained to people, as we have been digging into, and we'll talk in a while, the things we found in the notes and the typescript, he wasn't killed the way Bram Stoker described killing should be. So he remains, with the ability to return. He is an unresolved and complex character, very multidimensional, that allows other writers to be inspired, other screenwriters to be inspired and take him in many directions. So he's so complex that he's still being sought after and interpreted in many, many different ways. As I said, we're going back to the beginning and taking the initial character that Bram created and resolving him in our own way. It doesn't mean it's the definitive way, because I respect the ways many other writers have done it, but we're going to resolve it in a way that we think Bram Stoker would have done it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think that it's a very important point you say, because this book, Dracula, is about Dracula, but we never really hear his thoughts. We don't know what, as you say, what are his motives, his backstory. It's all told from the point of view of the other characters, so we really don't know much about it, and that's not very common in a novel. Normally, the protagonist will be telling you their story, and here it's quite the opposite. So that's also something that makes Dracula very, very interesting in terms of that. Chris, I don't know if you would like to add something else in terms of that. Why do you think that it's still so permanent in our cultures all over the world?
I think, as Dacre said it, it's the ability to represent the character in whatever way you want. So for writers, that's fantastic. And it's become a franchise. It's become a franchise because of Universal, because of Hammer, because of the film media. Yeah. For me, I'm quite attracted to the character because when I read through the original novel, I could see the viciousness, the raw power of Dracula, and the intelligence. He was like a spider in a web, and I didn't see that portrayed in very many arenas. You know, going back to graphic novels, 30 Days of Night did that very well with their vampires, and that fast ferocity. You know, that you see. Mostly we're stuck with the gentleman vampire, which was, you know, popularized by Paul and you know, that to me doesn't really resonate. When I look at the character of Dracula, it's a lot more vicious, dangerous, evil, absolute, pure, unrelenting evil. And there's a real tendency nowadays to try and either justify the monster or redeem the monster. And you see that in Coppola's version, that he desperately had to redeem this monster by giving the you know, the concept of love, that he was doing this for a lost love. Dracula came to England to control the empire. He was a warlord. He wants to control the world. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about, you know, your soul. He doesn't care anything about you unless he can use you. We delve into that a little bit in Stalker Verse with an audio drama called Voices of Dracula. And if you join our Facebook group connected to Comic, which we'll talk about a little later, you'll get to hear audio clips from the audio drama. And yeah, we do portray the true horrifying face of the Count. I think that's why, you know, the Stoker Verse is maybe very interesting to those people who have seen the countless portrayals of Dracula. This is something new. It's kind of strange because it's something new, but it's coming from the original vision. Exactly. If you think about it that way, it's very strange, isn't it? It's a bit of a dichotomy, but yeah.
Yes, because you think sometimes when you look at a novel, you say that's it, it's over. But as it is very open-ended in a way, it gives us an opportunity for the later generations to say, okay, I can take this and make it mine, and maybe explain a different point of view from and even what you're doing, because this is one of my next questions, and we will get to the Stoker Verse in a moment also. This is a question for Dacre, like, as Bram's great-great-nephew, you've had access to materials and information through your own research that is giving these new lights to Dracula, just like Chris was mentioning. So what have you found so far, and what are you integrating into this and future projects? Because this is very important to say. The Dracula that we all know, and actually I have here one book, actually for writers, which is really, really good to understand the writing part. But they say here, like, okay, this is one version that is edited, that is not really what Bram wanted to say. And you found so much of that in your research. Can you tell us a little bit more about it, please?
Yeah, the past 12 years, I've been digging into Bram's life and the life of his brothers, my great-grandfather. In the process, I found a lot of letters back and forth between the family members, and one of them was Bram's eldest brother, who actually helped Bram with all the medical sides of the story. And you know, try to keep this brief because I could talk for hours, unfortunately. But the science part of Dracula, the medical part, was very cutting-edge science at the time. Bram's eldest brother was actually somebody who helped Bram not only in the physical side with the operation on Renfield in chapter 21, but also the side with the people that had mental challenges. That's how he helped figure out Renfield. But there was one other really interesting section that Chris and I delve into a lot, and that's this scientific mind that was also a criminal mind, because the science that was being looked at, called phrenology, Cesar Lombroso is mentioned in the novel of, this is the type of criminal mind that Dracula had. He was a scientist that was doing experiments on people. Now, that didn't come out in the full novel, and we fleshed that out. We also find in a different version of the novel in Iceland and Sweden that there was half ape, half human creatures. So this was something that Dr. Thornley Stoker was actually looking into in Ireland, the treatment of animals in scientific experiments in Ireland to make sure they're treated properly. So it's a big issue that I know Bram was looking into. We're picking up that little thread of the scientific experimentation, the criminal mind of Dracula, and utilizing that. The other thing is, obviously, in his notes, I find out which characters didn't make it into the final novel.
Okay.
So we look at the names of characters, some of their characteristics, and boy, oh boy, we've then got people and things that we can put back into the story. I've delved into the typescript, which is the final manuscript that Bram had that he actually gave over to the publisher. And we see the things that were crossed out of this manuscript. And of course, we decide, is it appropriate to put it back in again? Where do we put it in? What do we use? Things that were added in at the last moment. So with great insight into his research and writing process, we get into the mind of this guy. We pull back the curtain and we know what Bram Stoker was doing. And we look at those and say, hey, what can we use here? We also realize that 102 pages were cut out of the original story.
Wow, that's a lot.
3 chapters, but they weren't. I've never found a full typescript of it. Just notes that lead to things that happened, things that he was planning on having happen to Jonathan Harker on his way from England to Castle Dracula. And of course, Chris and I use that in a way to capitalize on it and let people know some of the things that Bram was thinking of doing, and sort of, again, opening up the vault and pulling out some of those mysteries that have been hiding for 125 years.
Wow, that's I think most people don't know this, that it was there was so much edited out, and it's kind of frustrating to know that, like, what would have Dracula been, but at the same time it is what it is because things happen just as they did in a way.
Yep.
No, so we have to
Yep.
be thankful for that, and the fact that you have this opportunity to bring back to mainstream that there is more information, and now you can use that to create something new, such as the Stalker Verse. So tell us a little bit more, what is the Stalker Verse? Because I mean, I love the term, let me tell you, it's great, it's very appealing, but what does the Stalker Verse entail? Where does it come from? Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Chris, why don't you jump on this one?
Yeah, it's an integrated series of games and stories in a horror universe, which follows in the footsteps and is inspired by Bram Stoker's research and his writing of Dracula, as well as other novels and short stories. So what we do is we look at all of Bram's body of work and we try and integrate themes, characters, and situations that will be appropriate. So, what I mentioned before, Jill 7 Stars is a fantastic cosmic horror story that has a lot of Egyptian references to it. And we incorporated that into our audio drama. So we've got a range of, graphic novels, board and RPG games, video games, and audio dramas. So what we do is we have all of this kind of media, and then we craft stories appropriate to that media, but we always leave little links, little interconnecting links. So we have a video game coming out, and as Dacre mentioned, that there was elements that we've been able to trace back of what happens to Jonathan in the castle. We're putting that in the prologue of the video game. You'll be able to play through that. Okay. As Jonathan Harker escaping the castle. That's the prologue of the game. Wow. So it's aspects like that, voices of Dracula. You had mentioned about getting into the mind of Dracula, really getting in there. We were lucky enough to have Hollywood actor Simon Templeman come on board to be our Dracula, and you do get some insight in the audio drama as to what Dracula was thinking and what he was doing, as well as a little prequel to the original novel, which looks at why Dracula wanted Carfax, and then a little coda at the end, which sort of demonstrates a little bit of what Dracula was doing in London. Because as I always say, he didn't come to England for I think the parlance says a booty call. He wasn't coming to England because he was madly in love with Mina and he wanted to corrupt Lucy.
No, of course not.
There were reasons why he did that, and a lot of it was to do with there's the rivalry between himself and Van Helsing has a lot to do with it. So yeah, you can check out our audios and other aspects of the Stokerverse for more.
Okay. And so where can we connect to the Stokerverse? Like, where can we find more information if we wish to be following what you are sharing? And because lately you are sharing a lot precisely because of this project, right?
Yeah, we've got a couple of Facebook groups. So we have Stoker and McAuley Productions. So you can follow us there, and that tells you all the different bits and pieces that Dacre and I are doing throughout the year. And then there's the Stoker Verse on Facebook as well. And now we have for our comic book, we've got our Dracula The Return. So if you want to look at that group, it's a great introduction to all aspects of Stokerverse, and obviously with an emphasis of our new project, the graphic novel.
That's very good. And how are people receiving this idea of the Stokerverse? Are they excited to see, like, we're gonna have all these crumbs of bread, no, all over, and we're gonna go on a hunt, no, to find the treasures? So how are people reacting to this?
I think what they're enjoying is the fact that we're breathing new life into the mediums where you can get involved. You know, I have not been a gamer or a comic guy or an RPG guy, but Chris has. This is the world he works in. He's very talented in these areas, and he explains to me, he said, look, you know, you got these other ones, you know, the Vampire the Masquerade, you got these other, why not do something with Dracula in this arena as well? Yeah. So he finds the appropriate projects. We modify our stories. We pull out from different places from Bram's universe and we reinsert them. And then he's the one that makes sure that the team of people in these different game companies, Chris, you could probably tell Ada of the different companies, but these guys are then, there's a whole group of people in each of these, you know, these companies that are creating the stories, but Chris and Dacre make sure, and it's because Chris is there making sure the quality control is there, that it is true to our mission of the Stoker Verse. We're definitely going in different directions, but we don't want it to revert to just anybody does anything they want. So we're trying to bring it back under control of the Stoker family. And, you know, Chris has roots. He's an Irishman himself. He's a Freemason, as Bram was. So we have a real passionate connection to doing this in the same way that Bram Stoker would be proud of 125 years later.
Yes. Can you tell us a bit more about this adventure on the video? Well, I think, for example, I'm not very much into video games. I just know a little bit, but for example, I can think of Castlevania, for example, that is a very, very popular video game. And then they turned it into, like Netflix took it and made this series out of it. And you're doing the opposite. Now you're going from the book. Now let's go into video games and then also into comics. So can you tell us a bit more how it's going in terms of video games?
I'll tell you about the games. So we've got the tabletop games. We've got an RPG title. We've already released one of them. It's termed as a quick start. So it's a campaign. It's 90 pages. The artwork is from famous 2000 AD artist Clint Langley. He also works in the Warhammer franchise, and he does fantastic. The paintings are amazing, and the you know, it's that very visceral style mixed with high Gothic. And in the quick start RPG, you can pick one of the heroes from the original novel and play a continuation of that story. It's actually set after the comic that we're talking about. Yeah, so you will encounter various characters, you'll encounter monsters and creatures, and it helps you get a footing within the Stokerverse. And then we've got our major RPG coming out with the same company. It's coming out in October, and it's a 260-page horror book that features some new stories in the Stokerverse, and you can interact with classic monsters such as Jekyll and Hyde and Frankenstein's creature, but they're very much within the Stokerverse, and they're a different flavor to what you would expect to see. So yeah, part of the reason for the RPG was that, you know, Bram managed the Lyceum Theatre, and RPGs are almost like a form of live theatre with dice, where you take on a role and you've got a games master who goes through the scenario, and yeah, it's up to you to decide what happens. So it's almost a form of an interactive play, which I think Bram would love. I've been able to interact with those characters as well, and that manner is quite unique, and it gives more opportunity for storytelling. We've got a board game RPG coming out called Venatori. Venatori is very different. It has connections to the other Stalker Verse games, but it's set in a London that is besieged by a gas which is starting to change people. And you have to take on the role of somebody in a secret society. So you get to choose the secret society. And there's a group called the Venatori. And the Venatori are pulling the strings. And yeah, there's some Dracula in there, but it's actually more focused on Bram Stoker. You will follow a trail of breadcrumbs that Bram Stoker has laid for you to help you throughout the board game and the adventure. We've got our video game that I talked about, and it's actually set after, quite considerably after the comic book in 1911, around the First World War. And we start to see what the vampire court is doing around that time. And that's the culmination of Dracula's goals and purposes in London that were seated in the original novel. It plays at Castlevania. It's a Metroidvania style game, because I love those type of games. And you know, Castlevania has never ever shown the real Dracula.
No,
you know, it's been Konami's form of Dracula. So that's one of the reasons we've done that as well, to do that style of game with the original, the authentic Dracula. We also have a little dice game called Franken Dice coming out, and it's in the Stalker Verse, but it's about a village. It's a family game. You can play it with your kids, and it's a story about 4 inventors who've got kicked out of their village, and they go back to their castles and they craft monsters, and the monsters go and capture as many villagers as they can. So it's just a fun sort of dice game, fast-paced dice game that families can play. So yeah, we have all that, and we also have a miniature war game coming out from Crooked Dice Studios, and these are very detailed miniature figures, and they're basing this war game on the original novel, aspects of the original novel. So you'll get to play Jonathan Harker escaping the castle. You'll get to see the Demeter and bits and pieces going on with the Demeter as well. So it's set around the novel.
wow. So you've got, really, this is the universe of Stoker. This is the Stoker verse, literally, because you are really like branching out. And this is really amazing because I don't think anybody thought about, hey, can Dracula be like a board game? But an interesting one that is actually linked to the original text. This is really, really interesting. And how are people reacting to this game so far? What are the comments that you've received?
Very excited. We did launch sort of the intro screen, animated intro screen, and they're very excited by this. It's linked to the comic. It's actually linked to the comic book. So yeah, I think people are fascinated by this because they're seeing that we're not just trying to do one sequel. What we're doing is we're branching out into a timeline. We've created very strong characters, you know, and that, you know, and it's a very everything that we've kind of put out has been received well because it's very powerful, and I think it's powerful because it goes back to the original. You know, that we're not aping on Twilight, or we're not aping on, you know, what Anne Rice did. What we're doing is we're going to we're looking at Dracula, we're extrapolating out who Dracula actually is, and then moving on from there into this sort of horror universe.
It's very dynamic, I would say, and I think that's gonna keep people on their toes and very interested to see, hey, what's gonna come next, and to know that you have to be like really looking into everything so that everything will make sense if you're playing the game or if you're reading the comic, and then you know that you can play a little bit in many different arenas. This is a lot of fun, definitely.
Yeah, it's all they're all standalone, so they all have their own particular storyline. But for the people who follow all the products, they will get the little Easter eggs, and they'll be able to. There is a trail that we're leaving, and if you follow that trail, then you'll get to understand a lot more about Dracula and the worlds of Bram Stoker through that.
Excellent. I don't know, Dacre, if you want to add something else to what Chris just told us.
You know, it's exciting to me because it's not the normal things that I do. I'm more into the literature, the research, and then the writing. So I'm excited, probably as much excited as anyone else, because I'm determined to learn how to play in a role-playing game and get involved in that. And having have a hand in the telling of the stories, I'm thrilled to death to do it. So I think I'm just as excited as any other fan would be for when all the rest of these things come out.
That's really interesting, because you would say like, he's really the force behind this, like maybe he's just delegating, and but to say that you're excited about this is like, this is really cool. If even you are interested, like, this promises to be very interesting. And so I've noticed also that for this project, that I imagine many others that you're working on, you've decided to go on a self-publishing path, right? Like this is an independent edition. Why have you chosen to do it this way?
You mean the comic book Kickstarter?
Oh yeah, in this case, yeah, for the Kickstarter.
Well, you want to tell them a little bit about Scratch Comics? I mean, it's not so much self-publishing, but it's a small publishing house.
It's a small publishing house, but it has a great pedigree. Ultimately, the force behind Scratch Comics, Shane Chebsey, he has all the connections in the comic book world, US and UK. He runs a lot of comic book conventions. This will be the second comic book company that he's actually ran, and he has got a successful track history. So why we're doing Kickstarter is it's about fairness. Kickstarter can be used to ensure that the artists and the writers and the creative forces get paid before something hits the shelf. Something hits the shelf and then you have to wait for a while for the profit share. And I mean, that can be very difficult for artists and for writers. The other aspect of Kickstarter is that, this is a very high quality product. We have an awful lot of things to offer. So if you think of it as a pre-ordering mechanism, we've got variant covers. We've got you can even pledge and have dinner with Mr. Stoker here at a top quality restaurant. So it's really it's not just about offering one product. So you walk in the store and you lift the comic book and that's it. What we're offering here is a variety of almost services, I would say, that you can choose, through the pledging goals. I mean, the comics don't get made, but if you buy it when it hits the stores, you won't get an opportunity to get these amazing covers from various comic book legends, and that's the important thing. And we also have our stretch goals that we will be announcing this week, I believe, or certainly next week. So yeah, we've lots of goals, and we want this to be the full Dracula experience, the fullest experience Dracula fans can actually have, and Kickstarter is a great way of doing that.
And it's also a flexible way. I mean, I've published some books with traditional big house, top 5 New York publishers, but Shane Chebsey has got a real passion about this, and as Chris said, he's also organizing these conventions. So he's got Chris and I coming over to Birmingham in September to meet people, and that way you sit down with all the artists from the project and the guys who are involved in the covers, and you can meet us. We'll be doing panels together. To me, it's a nice way to have great flexibility, offer incredible services, and offer the extras that you don't get if it's just big contract for a big product. You walk in the store, buy one, or you order it from Amazon, buy one, and that's over. This gets you up close and personal to the whole process. Plus, we're going to be providing, Chris and I have already cherry-picked some really cool pieces of Stoker memorabilia deep from the archives that I've dug into, different things that in Bram's life that we're going to be digitizing and sending to the people that pledge. certain postcards, that sort of thing, that are going to be just those little extras that just make participating in the Kickstarter for Dracula the Return, Cult of the White Worm, just that much more exciting to be a part of.
So it's mostly like you're offering not only just a product, as you say, I wouldn't even say a service, but it's the experience. But also, I would say, this is fantastic. It's like you can be a part of this history as well when you participate. So you're being there with the creators, and know that a little bit of you is also in there making this possible. So I think that's very special.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I like the way you described that. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, so, well, I already pledged a little bit because I live in Mexico, so sadly we don't get shipping over here. Hopefully in the future you will get more Mexican fans learning about this, and then you can ship stuff over here. But I think that there are many, many countries that can participate. Can you tell us some of the countries that can receive these products when they pledge to the Kickstarter campaign?
Well, that's a little bit news to me. I'll tell you this, though. I will make sure I get something here in America, and I'll mail it to you in Mexico.
Oh, thank you.
I'll get some because you're taking the time in this podcast to help us promote this.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Chris, I'm not really sure, to be honest, of what Shane has in mind for how these things, because one of the problems, I mean, it is a worldwide problem. I've been shipping things from my website, even these new pins that I just got. It's incredible the expense of shipping things internationally. I don't know if it's supply chain or if it's pandemic, but it blows me away how expensive it is to send things.
It is.
And it's, it's not, maybe it's jet fuel or the fuel for the ships. I don't know what it is, but it really makes things expensive. And some people look at that and go, well, geez, I'll just buy that off of Amazon because the shipping is free. Well, nothing is free. You pay for it one place or another, but I know it cuts into what we're trying to keep with our product, a very reasonable price, but really high quality stuff, but without having to pay the shippers for all the money. Chris, can you shed any light on what's going on with international shipping?
Yeah, it's strangely enough paper shortage. The paper shortage is a lot of the publishers I'm working with now on other things. It's paper shortage. A lot. What we're finding now is that in the games industry, when it comes to the RPGs, the PDFs are getting offered first, because obviously it's really easy to email a PDF, and then the printed version will come later. So it's almost, you get your proof of purchase as your PDF, and then once the paper shortage is resolved, then you get your. That happened with the Doctor Who annual that you and I were involved with, Dacre.
Oh, yeah.
There was terrible paper shortage, and it was worldwide shipping. What we will do is we'll find out from Shane what the plan is there, and we will do a post on our Facebook group.
But definitely you have the offering for many, many countries already in the Kickstarter campaign.
Yes, I just don't know them off the top.
I don't know them either.
Okay, so people who are watching,
go
go right now to the Kickstarter campaign and contribute, and also look at what countries. And if not, just do what I did. Like for now, I'm like, okay, I can only help by having the PDF, which is okay. Like I'm still gonna enjoy it. But there's people like me I'm very kinesthetic. I like that's why I have my books here. Like I have this one. I also have, and I wanted to show everybody. This one is in Spanish.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I love the smell and I love to touch things. So for people like me, yes, we prefer the physical product, but sometimes it is a bit complicated. And also with the shipping here in Mexico, if you don't send things by certified post, like they get lost. So so that's another challenge in some countries like mine where the post is not so good. So obviously it increases the price, but I think as somebody who likes to read, and also as a writer and as a person who is a creative, helping other people who have these kinds of projects as you do, you know that you're not really paying like, oh, it's so expensive, I'll wait to get it on Amazon, as you were saying, Dacre. It's more like I'm helping a person who is making an effort to contribute to the culture of the world, and this is the way you do it. You have to whatever is on sale that you can, or you can donate, or you can just, if you say, oh, I don't have money, or this is too complicated, well, it doesn't matter. Go tell people that there are people like you having this amazing project so that maybe other people who can actually contribute, that they can do that to this cause, no?
Yeah, absolutely right. That's music to my ears, what you said, because you've hit the nail on the head. There's many other people like us, many others in the artistic world, in the services world that rely upon these crowdfunding. And it's, as Chris said, it's like pre-buying. You're buying it up front. You're helping the artist get a free, get their ideas. Like, I know I'm going to get paid. You get this money up front, and rather than wait 10 years for royalties to come rolling in, and it's difficult.
And that gives you opportunity to be creating more stuff.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yes, because sometimes it must have happened to you, or it will happen that people will say, oh, can you please send me a free copy? When people do that, because I was working with a friend, a close friend, I was editing his book in English, and then the book is out now, and somebody said, oh, send me a free book, please. And I was like, no, send them to your editor, and I'm gonna have a word with them, because there is so much effort in doing this. It's not only money, it's talent, it's time, it's effort, it's blood, sweat, and tears, basically. So in order to bring these kinds of projects forth, we need community, and we need people to pitch in. So I think that it's very important to say that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, so, you're right.
I know it firsthand as well, because I've worked in this, and it's like art needs to be appreciated, it has to be supported, and we need the money. So it's important that you guys contribute to these kinds of things, because if not, the world is missing out on very important stories.
It also keeps artists employed. There's no two ways about it. I mean, if you look at the state of the comic book industry at the minute, you have two big publishing houses which are now starting to cut staff, DC and Marvel. In the UK, you've got 2000 AD, and it just produces maybe two comics a week. It's not a lot. No. So what we're trying to do is really kickstart a form of, if the Eagle Eye, people will see that this is the first of the series. So we are intending to have a series. So really by pledging your support, it'll mean that we can continue on and say to the artists, hey, look, you're going to get paid. So I think it's a very ethical way to go about creating comic books, because everybody, you get a living wage, which is very hard for any artist, because I'm a comic book colorist and inker as well, and I've worked for the big companies, and it's very hard to get a living wage doing it. Yes,
you have to find other gigs, definitely, because it won't pay for the bills. But this is giving you the opportunity to be in creative control. First of all, I think that's why that's where my question was going to, no? Like, how you have creative control and you get a fair pay for your work, which I think is very important. And many people may not be aware of this. They think that you just push the button and magically it appears. But there's so much work behind designing and thinking and just being in front of the computer and writing. It takes time, and so we need to support artists all over the world. I'm thinking right now, I don't know if you guys know about Amanda Palmer, but she talks about the art of why, the art of asking, not the art of why, the art of asking. So you ask, and what she did, she's just getting money directly from her fans, and then she gets to do whatever art she wants, and she's been very successful. And so other people are joining also these kinds of endeavors, like, why should we go through the big companies? They just think that you're disposable, and that's not true. Every artist has something very special to give. No?
You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's I think it's important to support the crowdfunding for comic books and for art in general. A lot of it as well, the last thing I'll say about it is it's not just about controls, but rights, and that the artists and the creators actually hold the rights to their work. There's too often where people have put in, and I tell you now, running the Stalker Verse is a full-time job. Yeah. And if companies come along and decide that they're going to take the rights just to publish something, I think it's a little unfair.
It is.
So that's one of the reasons. Another reason we've chosen this route, because it's a rights issue and everybody gets fair shake of the hand when it comes to rights.
Yeah, that's important. Also, we don't really think about authors' rights, and sometimes people, because let's say that a big company, I'm not going to say names, but let's say a big company approaches you and, oh, I want your work, and then you sign a contract and you don't read the little letters, and turns out that they have the rights to whatever, no, and then you're like, so what about me? No, you're making all the money, and you never even noticed. So it's important for creators to be aware of how can I protect my rights? Because you're not going to sell your soul to the devil just for, I don't know, just whatever dollars, no? So it's important. That's very good that you mentioned that, Chris, definitely.
Yeah, he's right.
And also talking about this topic about people who may be listening to us right now, who, no matter their age, who are creators, be writing, drawing, painting, music, whatever they create, what advice would you both give to help them in their creations and to bring fruition to whatever projects they are dreaming about? Because maybe there will be somebody, even not right now, but a few years or months later, and they're thinking, oh, I would like to be drawing comics or write a novel, and I feel discouraged, I'm not good enough. What would you tell these people that want to create, but they're like a bit hesitant about it?
Well, I'm a pretty good example because I was not a writer. I was a physical education teacher, a science teacher. I was a coach. And I got into writing. Luckily, I had some co-authors and editors that helped me. And the best advice that I got from somebody at the beginning of my process, and it sticks to this day, is just be yourself and stick with it. Don't get discouraged. Write everything down. Don't, oh, it's no good, or it's, oh, I'm afraid of somebody else reading it. You have to just build up this confidence that what you are writing is going to be enjoyed by somebody. It may take some editing at some point. It may take, if it's art, it may take, another draft, but also very importantly, keep all that information. Don't throw it away. Keep it. You might have big boxes up in your attic or somewhere. Keep that stuff, because it's amazing sometimes what an open mind can produce when you're relaxed, when you're not too stressed out. Just drawing or creating, writing thoughts, finding that space in your day just to get these thoughts out and write them down. Keep a file on your computer or a notebook and keep it. It's funny, I keep drawing parallels to Bram Stoker, but his notes didn't sell for very much money, but they sold, and now they're worth over $1 million, just 125 pages of notes in a museum. His typescript for Dracula, just under $1 million. That's the final thing he kept. So don't throw this stuff out. Don't erase it from your hard drive. Keep your stuff, because it may be valuable, but it's also valuable to you or somebody else that picks it up and says, oh, look what this person did. Exactly. He's now gone. But look at the original, the origins of these incredible thoughts. You think of all these incredible writers, Tolkien, and people are looking back at things, mysterious writings they did earlier in their life. So keep the stuff, keep that on memory sticks or somewhere, and don't be scared when people tell you, no, it's no good. Just keep doing it and find help. Go to your friends, go to teachers, and get help to refine your skills, because it's all good somewhere.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because you never know how you might inspire somebody even when you're gone, as you say. Yeah. So that's really, really great advice. Thank you. What about you, Chris? What would you tell our listeners?
I suppose, just drawn from my own experience, have a very structured day. Start your day with positivity. So, a window into my day is like, I get up ridiculously early. I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Wow. And I start my day with motivational speeches, affirmations. I read something inspiring, whether business wise or writing wise or spiritually or whatever, and then I start my work. So I'm primed. I keep a to-do list as well. I have 2 lists: to-do list and a priority list. Okay. And obviously then the stuff with the to-do list goes into the priority list. It's structured, and it's, as Mark Twain talked about, eat the frog. So if you've got a writing assignment, I have one at the minute. If you've got a writing assignment that's looking at you and it's quite intimidating, okay, do it first. Get yourself primed and do it first. Have a list. I always have a list of things that I have to write, and then I just go through it. So I think once you get into that level, you're a professional writer and you're making money from it. It's that structured approach to the day. As Dacre talks about, you know, as you're heading towards that, give yourself time in the day. So actually, that's what I say, you structure your day out and then give yourself maybe in the evening or in the morning or whatever, some time just to write, some time just to be creative, to write or illustrate or whatever it is you're going to do.
So dedicate some time every day to your art, whatever happens. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just show up, right?
Yeah, I think commitment, you have to think of it as a job, and you have to be committed to it. And, you know, hard work actually beats talent. 90% of the time, it's the hard work that beats the talent.
Yes, those are very, very good pieces of advice. And I want to just come back to a little bit about Bram's legacy. So Chris, you were telling us a little bit more about these other texts that Bram left behind, and you're integrating them to your work. So they might not be so popular, they might be unheard of, but for you, what is the importance of bringing that back into the Stoker Verse, different projects that you're working on?
Well, I'm going to say something very controversial here. I've said it often. I'm going to say it here. Bram wrote a lot more than just Dracula.
Yeah.
And Dracula's magnificent book. It may be one of the epitomes of Gothic horror, but for me, it's not his best book. And everybody raises the eyebrows. It's because Dracula's was a popular book. I mean, his first published novel, The Primrose Path, was a wonderful book. I think being Irish, I understood it. It was about an Irishman who was a carpenter who goes over to London, and he works as a carpenter on the stage. On stage, so obviously Bram's drawn parallels to what he sees in the theatre, and it turns into this. You know, it turns into a bit of a horror story, I suppose, but it's a drama. Another one he wrote was The Snake's Pass, and it's kind of like it's a romantic treasure hunt.
Okay.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Jill of Seven Stars, I go back to. I think it's one of the finest pieces of cosmic horror. Just how it ends, it's amazing. You know, so if you like Egyptian mummy stories and reincarnation,
yeah,
go and read that. Obviously, Lair of the White Worm, because it's very evocative. I think it was originally known as the Garden of Evil. And there's a link to Irish mythology. There was a worm called Crom that was used in Irish sacrificial rituals, because the Irish used cannibals. We weren't all about rainbows no. And leprechauns at one stage. We were quite fearsome characters. So he draws on all of that sort of stuff. So he draws on mythology. Going back to Dracula, I really like Dracula's Guest, which is it's kind of it's strange. It's almost like Gothic weird fiction and foreshadows an awful lot of the stuff in Dracula. And I know it was originally part of Dracula. There's so much more to Bram Stoker than just Dracula. Mm-hmm. And if you're interested in Dracula and you're interested in Bram Stoker, go and get one. I have a complete works of Bram Stoker. I bought it a couple of years ago. And I went to the university that Bram went to. So we used to go to the Great Hall and used to sit under his portrait in the Great Hall in Trinity. And you know, he was a theatre critic. He helped Buffalo. Dacre could tell you all this stuff better than I could, but you know, he helped Buffalo Bill with his Wild West show. He did so much, and that's why I sort of am looking at his wider work, and I see it all, and like through the Kickstarter campaign, there's going to be new goals that's actually going to pay tribute to some of the stuff that I've just discussed. Dacre and I are going to be paying tribute to Bram as well through this. But you'll have to go on the group and watch the upcoming videos to find out what those are.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Yes, I have this question because where I live, because I live in central Mexico, it's hard to get some of these books. These books are mostly out of print, so getting them is a bit hard. So when I saw that you are bringing back some of these materials so that you can make it more available for people like me who are interested, we're like, where do I find this? Where can I buy a book of this kind? Because it's not so easy to find, at least not here. And the fact that you're bringing it back, maybe it's going to bring this interest into people, and then we can see more of other Bram's works out there, which I think are very relevant. Not only the story of Dracula in terms of horror, but there's many like information there that is touching about like human nature itself. No, why do we go into these horror states? No, why can we be so dark and so angry and so? But there's also hope. No, you have both parts of the in the story. So it's good to know that, because you're such an expert. Well, both of you, obviously, you have all the information. That's what I wanted to know. Like, what else are we to expect? How are we going to get to know more about Bram from this project, from the Stoker Verse specifically?
There we go. Ada, let me tell you this. There is a website organized by a professor who has made all of Bram's public domain stories available for free.
Oh, great.
It's bramstoker.org.
Okay.
And it's wonderful because everything is in public domain that hasn't been obviously published yet. Bram Stoker's Lost Journal I published with Elizabeth Miller in 2012, so that's not in public domain right now, but all of his other works, the ones Chris has been talking about, plus one of my favorites, The Mystery of the Sea, you can have in PDF, in text. So that's a good place for people to start, even in central Mexico where it's hard to get books, bramstoker.org, and you can read them on your laptop or on your phone.
Oh, thank you. I had no idea. So it's good. I'm gonna be definitely checking it out, and I'm sure many people are becoming aware of it as we're talking about this. So that is excellent news. Well, just to finish this amazing conversation, I am so super thankful. Can you please tell us where people can follow you on social media? And I'm very interested because you have the Kickstarter, of course, and tell us a little bit more where we can find you on Kickstarter. But afterwards, like maybe they will listen to this after the Kickstarter campaign is over and they want to donate. How can people reach you?
Well, I'll start. The Kickstarter is called Dracula the Return, The Cult of the White Worm. That's, you go to the Kickstarter website and link onto that. We also have, as Chris mentioned earlier in the show, the Facebook page, Dracula the Return. That's a group now. I think we've just hit 2,000 people, haven't we, Chris?
Well, over it now. Yeah, we're heading towards 2,200 people now.
So that's a community that's, that we're really just a group that's now talking about all things Dracula. People are posting their own images about Dracula. Some of them are artists, some of them write. And that's sort of bringing this group together. And soon we're going to be getting more specific about specific goals and things on the Kickstarter, giving them some little Easter eggs, like advanced little gifts and so on. You can find me at dacrestoker.com. My wife and I also run the Bram Stoker Estate.com website. That's not bramstoker.org, that's the free one, .com. We actually have a signature store there where we sell the Bram Stoker bobbleheads, all the books, these pins and other things we sell. Plus we give away the opportunity for people to learn about the whole family, not just Bram Stoker. So we've got biographies about all of his brothers and sisters, interesting things. And sometimes different writers, researchers provide us with articles that we put on the site because we think it's good research, and so we share it that way. So that's bramstokerestate.com as well. And then I'm on Facebook personally, as well as Chris said, Stoker McAuley Productions, and then the Stoker Verse. So that's how you can get me. Chris, what about your portals, your entry?
That's mostly all mine too. I've got a website, dark-universes.com. So I write sci-fi, and I write Terminator and Star Wars and all sort of. I write Star Trek stuff. So you can see some of my other works on there. Yeah, but it's the Stoker Verse on Facebook, Stoker McAuley Productions, and Dracula the Return. And there'll probably be more as the games start to come out as well. There'll probably be little sites for them, but we'll keep you updated on that so you can never know.
Yes, of course. I'm very excited to see what comes from this. And I want to thank you both so much for giving me this interview. And I hope that this project and whatever comes brings you much success and also to the continuation of Bram Stoker's legacy. So thank you so much, Dacre. Thank you so much, Chris. So Synchronauts, here you have it. Go to the Kickstarter campaign and donate. And if you see this after that, doesn't matter, get in touch with Dacre and get in touch with Chris and see how you can contribute. And you can also be a part of this amazing story of Dracula the Return. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye.
Hi, folks.
Thank you.